Hello, grade 12s. Welcome back. It's Economics with Ms. Piwe, and we are busy going over the government intervention in terms of market failures, because we said it's important for government to step in and try and regulate and also minimize the negative externalities that exist in this market structure. So we move on and we now focus on the taxes and the subsidies that the government can impose. So we know that the levying of taxes, governments intervene in the market by levying a tax or taxes to recover the external costs. So if they want to recover from money from their external costs, then they will impose certain taxes on items or products so that they can cover the amount spent on these costs. So these taxes will increase the price and will result in a decrease in production, and this could help to reduce the negative externalities such as pollution, providing producer subsidies. We know that pollution is a big issue, and government tries to minimize pollution by imposing certain taxes so that the production of certain items is discouraged if it does contribute negatively to our environment. So the government provides subsidies to producers in order to encourage them to increase the production of goods. So we know that if we need to see more economic activity happening, the government can do certain things in order to increase production in the primary and in the secondary sector. Okay, so there's because they want the supply to increase. So we don't want to find ourselves where we have a shortage, where the supply decreases because of the price ceilings that are imposed by the government, but we want to see that setup that we just saw with the minimum prices. We rather end up with a surplus and have producers that are willing to supply, even though we will be left with excess goods, but those can be disposed or dumped in the local or in the international markets. So that can be handled. So the producer subsidies are often given to suppliers of agricultural products such as milk, wheat and maize. Okay, so we know that these are important because they are part of the agricultural sector. So government will have some subsidies and incentives given to the manufacturers of these products. So subsidies lower the cost of producing goods, and thus the market price of these goods is lowered. Okay, so now the subsidy will lower the cost of producing. So the production costs will be lowered, and then they will make the market price of these goods to be lowered as well. So then there'll be more people that can afford these goods and services because the prices were reduced during the production process. So let's have a look at our graph, which will explain how this situation occurs. So we've got our price over this side and then our quantity as well. So here's our price and here's our quantity, and then here's the original price at P, and then here's our original quantity over there. Then we've got our demand curve this side, and then we've got our original supply curve, and we see that there's been a shift in the supply curve because of the subsidies that are offered by the government. Okay, so let's gather more information about what is happening here. So for example, if we look at figure 8.7, and that's the graph that I've just shown you, the market price of rice is P and the corresponding quantity is Q. So we were able to identify that from our graph. If the government subsidies of the production of rice, the market price, or if the government subsidizes, so if they give a subsidy for the production of rice, so the market price will decrease to P1 because there has been a subsidy, and we know that a subsidy does help to reduce the production costs, and therefore it will lower the market price as well. So with corresponding quantity at Q1. So this shift is caused by the fact that government has agreed to provide a subsidy for this particular product. So the lower price, which is P1, allows for the poor to purchase more rice because the market price has been reduced. Okay, so now let's go and see all of this. Okay, so P was our original price and Q was our original quantity. Now government stepped in to provide a subsidy, and then our price then shifted. You see there was a drop in the price to P1, okay? And then also you can see there was a positive shift in terms of our quantity based on the subsidy that was given by the government. So that this means that more people, a wider range of people, has now got access to purchasing rice because of the subsidy that was provided by the government. And then this shift indicates that with the subsidy, the supply has been increased because the production costs have been lowered. Okay, so that's just basically to give you an idea as to what happens when government intervenes by using subsidies in order to lower down the production costs. And then we move on to the redistribution of wealth. It can be quite a sensitive discussion, so make sure that it is done in an environment where there's an educator or a person who can facilitate the discussion around these matters. So traditional methods, for example, the levying of various taxes and the provision of free services, services in kind and cash benefits to the poor are all part of the strategy in order to redistribute the wealth in our society. And also implementing redress methods, for example, the use of law to enforce redistribution. It includes black economic empowerment, affirmative action, empowerment, land restitution, land redistribution, and property subsidies, and that will be part of the RDP houses. So we know that the government has policies in place in order to ensure and that they also fast track the redistribution of wealth. In terms of land, there are policies around that, distributing housing or property. The RTP houses have come in that regard, but also policies like BEE, triple BEE, which looks at ownership, and it's got pillars, the 5 pillars that need to be considered. Policies like affirmative action, giving people from previously disadvantaged backgrounds an opportunity to participate in economic activity. So all of that forms part of the strategy that government has when it comes to redistributing wealth in society. So the government can use other ways to improve income distribution and overcome market failures, because it's important for us to overcome these market failures, but also it's important that we improve our income distribution patterns as well. So how can we go about doing this? So transfers income directly to the poor, for example, the child support grants, unemployment benefits, and etc. So we know that the government does give social grants to child support and to the elderly as well. They do get a monthly allowance or an income or a grant from government. So it's part of improving the income distribution. Also provides goods free of charge, for example, the community goods and education, etc., because we know that the free education in South Africa is an important subject. We're engaging in that subject because there is a need to offer free education, because the majority of South Africans don't have the financial resources to send their children to good schools and to universities. So the issue of free education is currently a big topic. Also implements employment creation programs for example, the Public Works program. So there will be programs that the government initiates with the intention of creating employment opportunities especially in the public works and also in the public sector, where they could be internships offered to young people to come and gain work experience in order for them to take up positions at various institutions. Subsidizing merit goods, for example, subsidizing the arts and cultural activities. We have seen a lot of that. Government will support the arts because the arts is something that is important in society in terms of just therapy and taking some time out. But a lot of work goes into the arts, and the government is now considering or is spending more in supporting the arts and just making sure that they run efficiently. Implements employment creation programs, we looked at that, and subsidizing merit goods, we looked at that, but also imposes tax and laws on demerit goods to discourage consumption. Okay, so in terms of cigarettes, in terms of alcohol, and also polluting the environment. So the government will impose serious fines for people who are found guilty, or will make these items so expensive using the sin tax in order to discourage people from consuming these items, and use fiscal and monetary policy to achieve micro or macroeconomic stability. So it's important because government has these policies. Earlier on, we did look at fiscal and monetary policies and the committees that are involved in making decisions under monetary policies, the role of the Reserve Bank and the Minister of Finance in terms of drafting policy that will make sure that our economic activity is improved upon, resulting in economic growth and growing our GDP. So all those discussions will need to happen, and government can use the fiscal and monetary policies in order to achieve macroeconomic stability in the country. And also make sure that consumers are informed about products. So it's important that we said they use the media that they have at their disposal so that they're informed about the products through the legislation. Okay, so I'm just going to move my screen up. So, okay, so through the legislation, the South African Bureau of Standards, the SAPS or SUBS, checks consumer goods in South Africa. Okay, so usually when you buy a product, there's that little stamp on the product to say that it has been checked by the South African Bureau of Standards. That council or structure ensures that consumers are given quality products and products that are not compromised in the production process. Also tries to prevent misleading advertising using the Advertising Standards Authority. So that's a huge issue. Well, we've got laws that actually tighten up this in our country. You know, in the US, people can say what they want about their competitor. They can use the competitor's name in their advertising campaign. But here you can't do that. And also you can't give misleading information to the consumers. You can't say advertise the product and say, hang on, you can get this for $2.99. Then I come into your store and you say, it's not really $2.99, it's $3.01. You know, it doesn't work like that because you are misleading your consumers. You are giving them false information because you want to attract them to come to your store. And when they get to your store, you don't give them what they're supposed to get. Okay. Right, so it's time to sum up our lesson. So in this lesson, we covered the following concepts. We looked at direct controls, and we said that when the government can pass laws or use existing legislative framework to control businesses that generate negative externalities. Okay, so government will have policy, they'll have framework in order to regulate or control the businesses that generate the negative externalities that we've been looking at. And then also we learned about the imperfect markets. We said that firms in an imperfect market supply limited quantity, so that was the key word there, of goods and services at very high price or at a very high price or high prices. So the government uses its laws and competition or laws on competition to prevent the exorbitant prices charged by firms, and also to ensure entry to the market is free, prevent harmful collusion, and encourage foreign competition, which helps to keep the prices of goods low, because now there's pressure on the local market in terms of their pricing strategy. If we all of a sudden we've got options, we're not limited in terms of choice and offerings, but we can explore using alternative suppliers for certain goods and services. So that's all part of the imperfect market, but we know under perfect competition there's free entry in terms of coming into the market, and also if you wish to leave the market, you can do so without any stress. So it's important for government to intervene when it comes to trying to control the negative externalities, because we hold them responsible in ensuring that the environment is protected and that we are exposed to quality goods as consumers. So they need to have structures and a framework that they can use in order to monitor this. Well, that's a wrap of today's lesson. I trust that you've learned so much from this lesson, and that we've helped you to prepare for your exams and the assessments that you'll be doing soon. So from uSphiwe, sengiyavala ke manje ngithi nisaleni kahle.